Welcome to the Golf Coach Podcast. Chris, how you going, mate?
Pretty good. How are you?
Mate, I'm doing well. I'm doing really well, thank you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I know it's early there, and it's actually quite late here.
Yes.
And really excited to kind of have you on. And had a mutual friend of ours. We went to some golf schools with him, and really excited to kind of learn from you and share your wisdom with the listeners here. Chris, can you give us actually where are you right now? What's happening? What's going on?
I am in Austin, Texas for the NCAA regional tournament down here. I have one of my players who made the tournament, so I came down from Vegas to work with him and get him ready for the tournament.
Nice. And do you work with many college players?
Yeah, I've put in 15 years of teaching. I've put probably 80 something homegrown kids into college. Worked with a few more here and there, and at any given time, I have 3 or 4 kids playing college golf.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes more.
Yeah. And how do you kind of work that in? Obviously, there's coaches in the college teams, more of like, I kind of call them like managers and help them train and stuff. Do you sometimes have to work with the coach on the teams, or how do you work that?
So, 99% of the time I have a great relationship. Like my kid who made this tournament plays for UMKC and Vandenborn. His coach, phenomenal dude. We talk a lot about what's going on with his game, how he's playing.
Yeah.
I'm the swing coach for the most part, and the college coaches are there talking about how they manage their game when they're playing. They do all the prep with them in terms of that. When a player asks me to pop into town, we're just looking at mechanics of the golf swing generally. So that's where my role is. And I'm here with Max Cooper, and I've been Max's coach since Max was a little kid when I first moved to Vegas 9 years ago. So, we had that relationship where we talk swing all the time, and if they get into a huge tournament, the parents can bring me down, and I'm here.
Yeah, nice one. So tell me, have you, so throughout the time that you've been working, closely with college kids, I think for how long you've been coaching for, I think you told me, 15 years perhaps. Yeah. Have you seen it, has the system changed much when you've been hanging around, like seeing the college system? Has it always been quite the same?
Yeah, it's changed significantly. If you're looking at players' rights per se, it's gotten a lot easier on the player. You notice that they can easily move around from school to school. There's not as many restrictions on how they can set up to move to a new school if they need to. Okay. When I started, you picked your school pretty much, and you were going to be there for your whole time. Now, if it's easier to move up, when you're talking about D3, D2, D1, it's easier to move laterally in each one of those sections. So you're not necessarily the decision making in picking the right school in the beginning is not as critical now as it used to be. When
it used to be very stressful, didn't it? Yeah, it was very stressful.
You're taking a year off if you want to go somewhere else. It was a very tough process before. Now it's becoming better for them. They just enter the portal and start talking to other schools. If they don't get along with their coach, something goes wrong. So
what do you think are the I guess the mitigating reasons to why you might see people jump from school to school? You think of opportunity, you're thinking of maybe perhaps they're not enjoying the location they're living in, like just various reasons, nothing you're seeing in particular?
Those are a lot of kids just go to school and they're like, oh man, I thought this campus was going to be a lot of fun. I don't like it. When I started, you never had a kid that would be like, oh, I don't like being in Fresno. I'm going to go to another school because I don't like the city. It was like, well, I'm in Fresno. I don't like Fresno, but guess what? I'm going to be in Fresno as long as I get my playing opportunity. Like, it used to have to be, there was something that there was major friction with the coach that would make you want to
Yeah.
go through that process, or really a better opportunity for playing. And now you see kids that are just like, I don't like the city. I'm going to enter the
Yeah.
portal and try and go to another city. But obviously, it's always been, opportunity for the player that would cause a move in a
What do
heartbeat.
you,
So,
yeah. And what are you seeing differently from, say, the player perspective? Because what I'm seeing, and obviously I'm here in Australia, right? And I'm going to say 12 players, I think, go over to college. And obviously, generally back then, the relationship just kind of dwindles away, right? You're handing them over because there's no online coaching like there is now. And you just kind
mhm.
of handball them across the ditch and you just might see on Facebook how they're going. But what I'm intrigued to kind of hear about, and one thing that I've noticed and what we're seeing a lot of, and is just how good the players are coming out of college. We know the general adage of back in the day where you came onto tour and you had to kind of earn your stripes. And we've seen that interview where Tiger Woods, I forget who he was talking to, but he said, "I want to win the Masters his first time," right? And
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was, but these days that was unusual then, but it doesn't seem unusual what we saw earlier in the year with the young fella winning a PGA Tour events at amateur, right? Like they're
Hmm.
coming out as ballers, like Colin Morikawa, Matthew Wolff. Like these guys are coming out ready.
Yeah.
What do you think's leading to this? What's happening?
I think at this point in time, there's a lot better access to knowledge. I
Mm,
believe golf coaching from a young age is more advanced. I mean, when I was a kid playing,
mhm.
you would run into a situation where you'd have your first coach who'd start you out, and then you'd work for a couple of years, and that coach would be like, "Well, he's past my pay grade. He's too good now." And then you'd go to another coach, and you'd have to keep finding all these coaches. Now I think there's so much access to information for coaching. You
Mm,
know, you can continuously move these kids on at a faster rate. Um, there's so much access to good tournaments. Like I saw Future Champions Golf had events down in Australia now. Chris
yeah,
puts on amazing tournaments, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can get access to good events wherever you are, um, and you can get exposure. And
yeah,
once you start doing that, you play in better events, and then when you have the big events, all those kids start coming together and experiencing high level golf at a younger age.
yeah,
So now you're more prepared for tournaments. I mean, this event right here, I've been out, on a PGA Tour driving range before. The event that they're setting up here for these kids feels very similar to that. So kids are being exposed,
mm,
to the tour level feel at a younger age.
yeah,
So when they get out there, it's not something that's completely foreign. Just like, whoa, I'm on the PGA Tour.
yeah.
It feels like they're used to.
It's interesting. Yes, yeah, yeah. Because I think and I've spoken on this many times in the podcast, and I've had data scientists from Drumore Circles, and he was telling me that the top 20 guys on the NCAA, it, what the statistical information that they're collecting, it's PGA Tour average in
Yeah.
regards to the actual, the performance of the actual physical golf they're playing. So obviously, we can say yes, it is like a PGA Tour, but they're not playing for cash, and it's a little bit different in regards
Sure.
to the mental side of it all. And I spoke about this, and I'm really sorry that I forgot the guy's name that won the PGA Tour event, the amateur from college. Um, I did a whole podcast on him essentially, but what I was asking Stephen Giuliano, the guest at the time, was that are you more surprised that he won this from a standpoint of physically being able to do this, or are you more surprised he won this from a mental standpoint that he won this? And he suggested the mental thing because he works with a lot of
Yes.
high-end college golfers as well. And watching that, I remember being away that weekend with my wife, which we never do. And I was sitting there in the restaurant watching it on the phone. Like I was that buzzing for it. And I don't watch golf on the phone. So this kid had everyone watching him. So
Yep.
it's amazing how mentally strong they're coming out. Don't you
Mm-hmm.
reckon?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much more access to playing time in these tournaments too. So these
mm,
kids have been beat up by golf courses, beat up by situations. They've experienced it all, coming out of college. I will say the physical ability too. Like, so we're at UT's course this week, and I was hanging out for a little while by the clubhouse on 18, which is a demanding par four, like tour worthy finish. You know what I mean? It's a great hole
yeah,
to finish. And I'm watching these kids, it's a beast of a hole. Just manhandle it. Like back in
yeah,
my day, I mean, a hole that's as long as it is, I'd be going driver 3-iron into this really multi-tiered green and just
yeah,
watching my ball roll back down the slope to the front and having to chip up and just hope I can somehow save par. These kids
yeah,
are giving themselves birdie opportunities because they're pulverizing a golf ball down the middle and then, hitting a 8-iron and getting it to just spin and stop on the right tier. So, I mean, they're playing a whole different game coming out
yeah,
of college than I ever was,
yeah.
you know.
It's so like there's that real. What I'm hearing there is there's this real sudden confidence as well,
Yes.
and I think how we get confidence is from seeing results and having proof and having access to truth, right? Like
Hmm.
I always say, Chris, if a boxer gets knocked out 8 times in a row and goes to the next fight and says, I'm confident, well, he's bullshitting you, right?
Yeah.
He's not confident. He's false confident. But
Sure.
these kids, right, who are having access to these high level tournaments, but also, hanging on a TrackMan all the time or hanging on a simulator and seeing these distances and seeing the ball do it, they're being told on multiple occasions that, they've hit a 6-iron and they've seen that it's shown on the sim thing 205, like it says 205 yards. They've probably seen it 1,000 times. Like
Yeah.
when I was standing over a 205-yard shot, when I was playing, I used to be like, oh, fuck, sometimes this was a 5, sometimes this was a 4-iron. I don't
Yep.
freaking know how far it's going to go. Where these kids are just like, I've been spending so much time on a sim. I know how far the club goes. I know how far this ball goes. I just got to put it there. So I think, that comes with the confidence as well, right?
Sure. When you see it
But
enough,
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what it's going to do.
What do you think? What do you think? To kind of tie a bow on that kind of college golf question before we go into the other questions. What do you think could be done better at college golf, or what do you think is going to change, or you got any things that you think that they could be doing better?
Um, right now, I think it's moving in a good direction.
Yeah.
I think I think it'll be interesting to see how it changed. It'll be interesting to see how long in the future are players not going 4 years anymore. Do they, right now,
Mm,
I think 4 years of college development is really important if you want to go play professional golf. I
yeah.
would be interested to see um, down the road if that starts becoming less and less. If you start seeing a lot more people in one and done, like basketball, they go for their
Mm,
freshman year and then they're in the NBA. Be interesting to see if that starts to change. I don't think I would prefer that. I like that these kids get 4 years in college and the experience, but interesting to see what
yeah.
happens with that.
I think the scary thing when it's interesting that you say that, right? Because I think that's what that young fella did that won the PJ Tour event, right? I should stop the podcast and Google it. But interesting that
Right?
you say that, right, about these guys who have their first year and then, we're seeing some crazy stuff and they're turning pro, right, or jumping onto the NBA. I think what's scary about that, right, Chris, is they haven't had any adversity or much
Yeah.
adversity because they've had such a great year and everything's come so easy to them. Like, fuck,
Yes.
this is easy. This is easy. I'm going to go to
Yes.
the next level. Well, it's like you probably need to. It'd be good if you had a 6-month stretch where you lost your swing or you didn't, you're
Sure.
getting fucking food poisoning or
Yep.
you're sleeping in shitty beds or you're
Yep.
missing cuts. It wouldn't be bad for that to happen, to experience that. So when you
Sure.
do get to the, these guys are going to jump up a level, get to the PGA Tour, get to the Corn Ferry Tour, miss the first few cuts, and not know what it feels like to be a loser. So,
Exactly. I,
yeah,
I, I get why he jumped the second he won. I mean, you
yeah,
now have full status on tour for 2 years.
yeah,
You'd be in that situation. You'd be crazy not to
yeah.
go and jump
I
on
agree.
full tour status. But I mean, you
I
see,
agree.
I'm afraid you're going to, a lot of players are going to have to go through the grind and play lower level tours for a couple of years and then hopefully get on the Corn Ferry Tour and then try and grind their way up. I mean, there's a lot of players on tour that have had a, 4 or 5 year grind from the moment they left college till they get to the tour and they make the tour when they're 28, 29 years old.
Mm,
I'm hoping that you don't see players trying to start that grind, of going from, you know, really low level tours and start doing that early. If
yeah,
that player needs his 4 years in college, so
yeah.
it'd be interesting.
Well, I heard it takes the average golfer 4 years to get on the tour from in playing mini
Sure,
tours, and
sure.
the average mini tour a year costs you 60 grand. So USD. So you're
I, I
240,
I have a
240
feeling that
grand
60 grand is a bit low at this point in time.
deflated,
I
of
would
course.
say you need 100 grand in
Wow.
this day and age, close to it, if you want to live. I mean, I've had players do that. I've had players go and work through. I've never taken a kid yet from the low level tour all the way to the full status on the PGA Tour, but I've taken them close to it, and that's an interesting trek that they have. You're sitting there. One of my players worked out a sponsorship with Red Roof Inn, and no knocking on Red Roof Inn, but when
Yeah.
I'm touring around the world, I'm not staying at the Red Roof Inn. So
Yeah.
even with that, it was costing that player who had his hotels taken care of $60,000 and 2001 prices. So
Yeah.
you
Wow.
know
Yeah. So
it's
maybe it is. Maybe I've been looking at some old literature there. Maybe it is. 100 G's, mate.
yeah,
It has to be, mate. It's about $10 for a bloody can of Coke these days. Not that I drink it, but
it is. Yeah, it is.
nothing's cheap. We're actually
No.
just yeah. It's so funny. And when you do think you get something cheap, like we're just booking some flights now to go to the Gold Coast next week. Suddenly we have to go up there, and I thought, oh, those flights are cheap. And then it's like, oh, where are we going to stay? Oh, that's not cheap. So it's like,
Yeah.
damn, I thought we are going
Yeah.
to get a good run, but it's just, yeah, it's one or the other, right? Hey, all right. I want to talk to you. I want to switch gears a little bit here. I want to talk to you about one thing I'm really fascinated about, which I spoke about for the podcast, Chris, is, I've had Dr. Mark Bull on here recently, Mr. Martin Chuck. Um, and what I'm fascinated about is learning and better ways to educate my players. So I do a lot of my coaching through online subscription plans, Chris. And the reason why this is successful for me, and why I like it to a degree, is that it's constant contact with the player. So I talk to the
Sure.
player sometimes 3 to 4 times a week, and that's not really possible for an in-person coaching model. Unless you got a lot of money, right? So
Right.
it's difficult. So that's why I kind of like that way of learning. And I also do teach 1 hour in-person golf lessons, and I also do kind of run some classes, some master classes stuff. So I'm always really, really excited to learn on how I can get better at coaching. And one thing I know that you do, like that you're known for, right? I don't think you could say Chris Howard without saying Chris Howard Golf Schools, right? I think it goes hand in hand. Can you tell me, it's a long-winded question here, but can you tell me how you got into it? What successes, why do you like it better than the other type of model, and how did you get into traveling the world doing it? Let's talk about it.
I think I got into when I first started doing that. I did private lessons in cities for a short period of time to start. I just say I'm coming to San Diego and I'm going to do a school, and or do some lessons, and I put it on my Instagram account, and it's like I like to travel, so I was
Yes.
like, let's see if this works. And I put out there I was going to be in San Diego, and before you knew it, I was sold out. And I was like, my whole day, I booked it out. I was like, oh, that's cool. Let's see if we could do a few more. I was like, all right, let's try Houston. Let's try LA. And I started selling out these days. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. And
That's cool.
you know, so at that point in time, done. I'm good friends with Shaheen Nakshivani.
Yeah.
He's a
Shane, yeah.
tour
Very
coach,
well.
and we were talking, and it was like, hey, dude, let's do a golf school together. So we did a couple, and I had a lot of fun doing it. We're talking about doing a couple more. Have been. It's just finding a time where our schedules can match up. He's pretty busy running
Mm,
around working with tour players all day, and
yes.
you know, um, but I really enjoyed that format. I really enjoyed traveling. I still do. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Austin, Texas, and I think that's just awesome. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. So a few years ago, I changed the concept from private lessons, and I decided that I would be better off doing a golf school format because when you're doing private lessons, that they're in there. We were doing hour and a half bookings, right? And you do some work on the full swing, and you get something accomplished, and then that's it. You don't see that person again unless you come back frequently. I used to go to San Francisco every month, but most cities you probably never see the guy again. You did one thing to their swing. With the golf school format, you know, I'm able to. I start out my day. We get a group of 4 people. It's a high priced item to do one of my golf schools. They're not cheap,
Yeah.
but I limit it to 4 players. If I have an assistant with me, I'll go a little bit more. But um, when we set up, we're going to start working full swing mechanics. We're going to work that for about an hour and 30 minutes as a group, right? I can pop from person to person to person and give them one thing to work at, one feel, spend about 4 minutes to start with each person and get them working on one thing. And then I can keep working up and down the line. And I can get them in that hour and a half a couple things to try and change with their swing. And I've always been a functions and matchups instructor, so I'm looking for the root cause of their problems. I want to identify it. I want to attack that. And I don't care what it is, attack it and just keep moving from person to person. And I think it's fascinating. When I do my schools, a lot of times I have an assistant with me who's recording everything.
Yeah.
So after we finish the school, we can get them a recap video of everything that they worked on personally with me and send that to them so they have a record and they can keep working afterwards. But after you do the full swing, now we move into a driver session. Um, then we do scoring wedges, short game, putting, and we finish up by going out on the golf course for a few holes and trying to implement what we worked on. When I'm doing the golf school format, I can cover every part of your game. So I'm going to connect with you on something.
Mm,
You know, if the
yeah.
full swing doesn't work out, maybe you have putting issues, and I just taught you how to control your speed like a champ, and you just took
Yeah.
strokes off your handicap, and you think my golf school is the best thing ever. So,
Yeah, I get it.
what a good format.
So, how long does that go for? So you have 4 people. How long? So you got for 90 minutes
six
hitting. How
hours.
long? 6 hours. Wow.
Yes. Yes.
That's very intensive, isn't it? And
It
I
is.
like that.
Yeah.
I like that you're
You
covering everything. Yeah.
you start out with the hard part. Full swing is the hardest part of the day, right? And
Yeah.
then after full swing, full swing's all one-on-one stuff. I
Yeah.
always I want to give them as much information as I possibly can, and I pick out sections. I've learned a long time ago, if you're just trying to go one-on-one for 6 hours and making them hit ball after ball after ball after ball, about 3 hours into it, they are done. And especially if it's a
Yeah.
regular golfer, right? So I have parts where I just talk about general theories for about 8 minutes for each section. And that buys them enough time where they're getting a break, but they're still learning because they're listening to you talk about something, but they're just standing there for that 8 minutes. So their
Yeah.
body's recovering and they're able to keep going on with their
Yeah.
session and survive it.
Yeah, because they definitely, yeah, obviously we all know, right, hitting that many balls. And I think as well is that when you, um, what's interesting is that I was talking to a golfer the other day, Chris, we're talking about just practicing. And I said, I want you to get a small bucket, just 30 balls. And I said, I'd love you to at least take 45 minutes to do it,
Yeah.
like to an hour. And he goes, man, that's a long time. I'm like, dude, you hit about 50 shots around a golf in 5 hours.
Hmm.
I'm just asking you to hit 30 in 45 minutes. Like it's just let's try and reflect the round of golf somewhat there. I like about that. So when you put those players together, and I love that type of instruction, it's kind of getting a little fire in my belly too because I got to go up north for a while with a friend of mine, and he's been wanting me to go up there and do some of this type of stuff with him. So it's getting me excited. So tell me, when you group these people, are they skill based the same, like on the same level, or just you could have a 2 handicapper and a 30 handicapper?
In Denver, where I was last week, I had a player who plays professionally in Europe,
Yep.
who was in the area and wanted to try it out, so he bought into it. And I had a player who'd been playing for maybe 6 months, and his personal best was 110, standing right next to each other on a driving range. And you know, Danny messaged me. He's the Euro guy. He told me how great the session was. Um, and the guy who had never broken 110 has now shot 87. So,
Yeah, sick.
he did it the weekend after he did the golf school. He's like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever done. And he wasn't intimidated by the fact that there's this guy right next to him just hitting these
Yeah.
long lasers out there without seemingly putting in any effort. He just was there to learn. And I thought that was an amazing combo for them to be right next to each other. So,
And when I love that too because with the 110 golfer, right? Like, what do I say? If anyone's got a bit of golf IQ and a bit of understanding, they're keen to get better. That no one should be shooting over 90, right? Like,
yeah,
and when you have that new person who's a 110 player, um, unfortunately, like if they were booking in to see me, they would probably just book a 1 hour driving range lesson in. But let's face it, that there's a lot of stuff that they're missing out on potentially that they need to be learning. They don't know. They don't even know what they need to be learning. So
sure.
they've gone to your golf school there and pretty open minded. I'll be understanding because they're not knowing what to work on because they're a 110 golfer, right?
Hmm.
And they probably got better, yes, from the driving range technical stuff, but they probably picked up just a ton of stuff around the green and learning about concepts and
Sure.
bunker plane chips. And I think because a lot of the beginner golfer doesn't really know where to even start, right? And that's what's cool about it. You get to kind of cover the whole aspect, which might take months of training with someone one on one, 1 hour now and then.
Absolutely. So I was in Atlanta a month ago, and I love this story. I've been talking to a few of my golf coach buddies about this one.
Yeah.
I had a guy who was a high handicapper in that one, pretty new to golf, and he's like, "Man, I feel I can smash it pretty well on the range, but then I go out on the golf course and I have no idea what's going on." And um, I go out and we have a range session. I mean, for a high handicapper, he hit it decently. There's definitely a lot of stuff we could work on, but he was just sitting there, boom, hitting it pretty solid. And I was like, okay, something doesn't check out here. So we go out to the course, and first tee shot, I was just talking to the starter about some things I need to know. So I was like, you guys just hit down there, we'll pick it up, and we'll start going. You just get it out there. One shot, you don't hit it well, you just drop in the fairway. I don't care. This was definitely a higher handicap golf school. So get done talking to the starter, drive down there. I kind of on the first hole just watch them play. Because I want to pick up what they're doing on a golf course, and then I'll get one on one with them the rest of the way, right? So I'm looking out at them. I'm standing there just watching all my group. And I turn around, and this guy's on the other side of the fairway, and I'm I'm looking at him. I'm like, am I in a weird spot? I'm looking pretty much down the line on this guy's swing, and I'm I'm
Yeah.
I'm standing to a place where I should be looking dead at his back, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, this dude's just aimed straight in the woods. So I was like, okay. I took a mental note of that, and then I get out there on the second tee box, it's par three, and I look at him, and I walk right up behind him, and I look at him, and I'm like, don't swing. And I grab another player's clubs, just put it down on his foot line, right? Lay it down on his foot line. I'm like, your shoulder plane is aimed exactly where these feet are. Let's come back here and look at it. And, he's turned about 60 degrees offline, dead into the woods. I would have never, because he was square fine on
Yeah.
the range, I would have never known that if
Wow.
I didn't go off there. I'm like, that could
Yeah.
be a big reason that you don't finish half the holes that you play.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah, it's cool.
so you see a lot more stuff about
Yeah.
players when you cover everything in a day, and
Yeah.
that's why we record it. So if it's not recorded, there's no way a player is going to, you know, retain all the information they're given in a day. Um,
100%.
they need to be able to go home and watch everything we worked on so that they can retain it. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? It's golf. It seems like an unusual thing to go watch someone play golf, but it's the only sport in the world where we don't actually watch our players on the field.
Correct. Correct. You know,
It's,
I
it's weird.
I I make a big point to, obviously if I'm working at this point with a regular golfer, we'll call him, I'm not going to have the opportunity to go spend a whole bunch of time seeing them play, but you can watch them play a couple holes. But I make a point with my junior golfers and my college golfers, with my professional golfers. I've shown up at minor league golf tour events in Florida. I did a golf school out. I had a couple guys that I was doing virtual lessons with, and I did my tour. And I took one day off just so I could watch each of them play 9 holes in competition on that tour and just walked around. I think I
Yeah.
was probably the first golf coach in the history of that tour to actually walk
Yeah.
around watching a player. But I mean,
Mm,
luckily, because I'm traveling all the time, I was in the area. I said, "You guys sign up for this event. If you don't sign up for the event and make it down there, I don't have the opportunity to watch you. That's your fault. I'm trying." So they both signed up, both played in it. I was able to watch them play 9, 10 holes each, kind of get a groove
yep.
of what they look like on a golf course. I think that is very important, and
Mm,
you know, it's something that tells you a lot because you see patterns on a range that don't necessarily translate to the golf course. So,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And I think it's, yeah, for the golf coaches listening to this as well. I definitely would agree with you that, we all see this, right, where guy comes for a golf lesson and he might be a regular and he's a 15 and he's just like pipes it down the middle of the fairway, and he goes, yeah, I'm a 15 handicap. I'm like, oh, something's wrong here.
yeah,
We're in the wrong spot. We shouldn't be sitting here on the driving range tee. There's
yep,
no way that you're a 15. So tell me why you like traveling so much. You just enjoy, like, obviously you travel internationally, which we're talking about. You coming to Australia in 2025, but
yep.
what you've always had, like, what I call itchy feet. You like just getting around because you're traveling from state to state there, right? So you're not really like getting any different cultural type of stuff. Like it's you love just traveling around the states as well. Like,
I mean, even if you're just the cool thing about America and other parts of the world as well, but
yeah,
you America can be very, very, very different, culturally, depending
okay,
on
yep,
what part of America you're in. I mean,
yeah,
we can the you're in Alabama, that is a completely different ball game than in terms of people than
yes, I
when you're
understand.
teaching a golf school in Seattle, Washington. You
Wow,
have a very different type of person, and I enjoy getting to meet people like that. I enjoy different foods. Like I got
Yeah.
to have Terry Black's down here in Austin yesterday. That's
Yeah.
arguably the best barbecue.
Yeah.
I'm some people argue the best barbecue in the States. I'm going to say it's one of the best.
Yes.
It's the best in Austin. I love it. I am not going to start a barbecue war with the
Yes.
people in the country because I've already made that mistake where I've gone to and put it on my Instagram story where I've chased the best barbecue in the country,
Yes.
and there were a lot of people who had opinions that different from mine from city to
Yes.
city. Americans get very passionate about that, so I enjoy being able to experience you know different cities what people love to eat. I'm the type of guy that if you put it in front of me, I'll try it.
Yeah.
I will probably enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I just enjoy that element of travel. And there's so many places around this around not this country, around this world
Yeah.
that you see. It doesn't matter how many times you've seen it, your jaw just drops when you see it.
Yeah.
So I love. I've been through two, three times. Been through Australia teaching. I did
Yeah.
the. I've done the run. I've done Brisbane. I've done the Gold Coast, Sydney, Adelaide, and Melbourne. Melbourne's one of
Yeah.
my favorite cities in the whole world. I love
Yeah.
Sydney.
Yeah.
Gold
Melbourne's
Coast
great.
is Gold Coast and Brisbane are just. I mean, Australia is cool because it feels those cities are not far apart, right? To an American, they're not far apart, right? You jump on a
Yeah,
plane for an hour and
kinda.
15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, aeroplane. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
aeroplane. Yeah, so for me, I'm in 2 hours south of Sydney via drive, but I've got a flight from Sydney to the Gold Coast, which is an hour and 10.
yeah. That hour and
Yeah.
10 for me, the closest city to me is LA, and it's a 50-minute flight. You can easily
Yeah.
hop all those cities, but they look so different, and they all have different vibes
Mm.
to them. That are
Yeah.
so drastic. Like when I'm in Brisbane, I feel like I'm in a Miami. You
Yes.
know,
It's true.
and
Bris
then you
Vegas,
feel
they call it. They call it Bris Vegas, mate.
sure it's shiny and crazy, and then you
Yeah.
get down to Sydney, and it feels like Europe. Melbourne too.
True.
I just love that you have that many different types of vibes
Yeah.
that close to each
Melbourne.
other.
Yeah, a lot of people like Melbourne. There's like a really cool restaurant, cafe, coffee vibe. Like if I get asked to do a gig down there, I'll generally take it. I've got an airport near me too, which I can get down there quickly to Essendon Airport, and it's got a really cool, edgy vibe to Melbourne. It's nice,
Yeah,
but I also love the nice, sunny, hot weather up in Brisbane, Gold Coast, where my friends coach out of like Grant Field, Richard Woodhouse, and Dominic as a party. They're all up there, up
yeah,
enjoying the warmth. Baden Schaff, friend of mine as well, so they're all up there. So tell me, um, when you come to Australia, apart from doing in the eating or when you're doing the traveling, do you do much looking around?
yeah. Especially when I
Yeah.
go. I mean, I I was talking. I was out with a comedian who tours
Yeah.
last night for dinner, and we were talking about touring in general. And it's
Yes.
like when we were talking about some of those cities in the middle of the U.S. It's like, dude, you go to Wichita, and it is like hotel room, teach, and get out.
Yeah.
You're trying to get out of those cities, but when I'm going international, I'm scheduling time off. Um, I will generally hit every major international city every 2 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so I want at least one day off in every city every cool city.
Yeah.
Um, at least every 4 years, I want to be able to just take a day where I'm a complete tourist in that city. Um, and then I'll do my running around Des Moines and Omaha as fast as I can to save up more time for
Yeah.
those international dates.
Tell me, how do you sell them out? Do you do it through email or do you do it just through Instagram? How do you do it?
Well, I mean, I have been lucky. I guess I'm pretty good at what I do, that I
Yeah.
generally retain clients in the golf school format very well.
Okay.
I generally have a base. I know next time I do Australia, just for example, I'll be in Sydney 3 days, and I've probably already sold out a day and a half, 2 days of it, just from
Yeah. Okay.
clients coming back. Um, I have enough followers on social media that I can announce a city, and then I will be able to fill a few more spots. And if I have to advertise, I mean, I don't know if you're looking to advertise. The best place to advertise a business is through Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Right now, the ROI on advertising through the views you'll get for advertising. I mean, $100 can get you 80, 90,000 views sometimes, depending on where you're advertising to, and that's just an
Yeah.
amazing tool, and that can take care of the last few spots and nothing. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. It's really fascinating. So you're getting those people that you kind of retaining coming back to the golf school, which I think that does make a lot of sense too, right? Because you're also selling an experience. And anyways, to those golf schools that you're coming out to here in Australia, we'll put all those links down below. People can access your Instagram account, your Facebook account. If you have an email as well, I'll put that down below, and people can access
Awesome.
Chris's golf schools through there, man. So that won't be a problem at all. But what I'm going to do, Chris, here, question without notice, right? One of the major sponsors of the podcast is Back to Basics. Back to Basics putting mirrors designed by Grant Field and Richard Woodhouse. It's got a 15-degree putting arc on it. Support those who support the podcast. TM15 gets you 15% off. We have a Back to Basics putting segment for this. In the Back to Basics putting segment, Chris, I like to share a putting tip or something that you might have. Do you use a mirror? Do you use the Back to Basics mirror, or do you
Yeah,
use the Back to Basics mirror?
I don't, but
Yes.
I love putting mirrors, and
Yes.
I've seen it. I have players that do use it, and they love it. I mean, it's hard for me to travel with a mirror around, but I believe Back to Basics is you could throw in your suitcase pretty easily if you were
Pretty good.
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I got one just here, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It's got the arc on
Yeah.
it here, the 15-degree arc. Nick Steiner, you'll most likely be sending you one, actually, to be honest with you, the Back to Basics sponsor. But that's what he does to the guests that come on here. But in this segment, do you have when you're doing your golf schools, do you have something for me that you can share of wisdom to people listening here about putting? Do you have a putting tip or something that people can do?
You know, so this year's format of my golf school, I have I used to be very technical, and I used to do a lot of drills with my players. Um, you know, a only thing I'm doing technical is something that swing aid would help with, and that's making sure you're aligned properly when you set up to a golf ball, so you're getting the right visuals, overlooking it. And then this year's format, I've changed the point. I'm not touching stroke with my players. Right, we're setting you up for success, and then I'm giving them drills. So I'm doing a speed drill.
Yeah.
I'm doing a start line drill, and I'm working with them on reading the greens. You know, and I think the kind of the format that I've approached this year with putting is we all get very technical with our stroke.
Mm,
Work to control your speed for the regular golfer, right?
yeah.
I'm out there getting very technical on a daily basis with elite players on their stroke, right? Because that matters. But for the regular golfer that would be listening to something like this, the guy who's shooting 80, 90, grind speed for days. Learn to control speed and have a clue how far that ball is going to go. And you're going to take off a massive amount of strokes. That's the thing that most amateur golfers miss, and that's the thing that would benefit them the most.
So the proximity to hole for their first putt, definitely you're trying to improve that. What type of speed drills do you suggest? Do you suggest like just putting the tees around the back of the hole, or like ladder type of drill stuff? Do you have a certain type of drill that you send them towards?
So I have a ladder drill, and I finish my putting session off with them just grinding on this one drill for 15 minutes. I will keep on the theme of the regular golfer here, right? Not
Yeah, of
the
course. Yeah.
elite player. I take the hole out of play when you're working speed. I do
Mm.
not want them hitting at a hole when we're doing it. So I set up a tee where I want them to start hitting from, and then I go, just for the drill, I go about 15 feet forward, and then I go about 15 feet again. And I say, here's an easy drill, guys. Your goal is to hit the first putt from the tee that we set up at, and you need to get to stop between the first and the second tee. Sounds easy, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's 15 feet. I should be able to do that. And I was like, all right, cool. Your next ball has to go past that ball and stop short of the second tee. Your next ball has to
Yeah.
go past the second and stop. And just challenge them with that drill over and over and over again, because you've taken the hole completely out of play, and all they're
Mm.
working on is making sure they can hit a ball a certain speed. And I think once you get that mindset going, their body starts to understand how to control speed.
There's a lot of merit in not using a hole. I know the data scientist from Draw More Circles he doesn't use Roseanne Zhang when she went to number one player in the world. Oh, not Roseanne Zhang he was working with. Oh, I can't remember. But one of the players, he wasn't working with her. Sorry, that's a mistake. Another player that went to number one in the world. Anyways, wasn't using a hole the whole time in her practicing. But I've been incorporating Chris when talking about speed control stuff. Working with the recreational golfer in my coaching, I've done a similar thing in the last 6 months. Honestly, I've just taken the hole out when I do have putting lessons. Is using 4 tees and creating a box right
Mm-hmm.
out there, and about a putter and a half. I kind of go on the skill level I'm dealing with, a putter and a half or 2 putter lengths, between each tee there, and putting 3 different spots to start from, and giving the player 5 putts from each one to try and get it into the box. And obviously, they're getting different types of speed stuff, and I found it quite fascinating because what we're doing is here we're getting a success, because it's not like you're saying we're going past the ball. We're not measuring in the hole as being good. It's in the box. We're getting a tick, and we're getting something easier to measure as well. So I got 3 this time. Next time I want to get 4. But what I'm also seeing is the player getting really good at dying the ball into the box, because there might be a lot of curvature to the putt. And they're doing a really good job of taking the high side and watching it kind of fall in the top of the high side, and then watching it creep down towards the bottom of the low side of the box. And I'm actually seeing the students get really a lot better at using the break and not going straight at the hole and finishing on the low side. So that's just something I've picked up. Reason, not that I do a whole lot of putting lessons with the recreational golfer, because it's not sexy. They don't want to waste their time doing
Right.
it.
Right.
But yeah,
I love that drill. I
yeah,
used to, like I say, used to get technical. I used to put them in, I set up 4 different drills, around a green for the putting session, and I'd have 2 drills that were really technical. That drill you're describing was in every single, was the
was it?
speed drill I used with every single golf school, probably for 3 straight years.
Yeah,
I
wow,
try
it's
I
great, isn't
try and
it?
get a new format every year, right?
Yeah,
Just because you got to change up the information. It's just like you go to a comedy show. If you say the same exact joke every year, people are gonna get tired. So I need to be getting them different concepts every year as a group.
yeah.
So that drill stayed in for 3 straight years. That is a fantastic putting drill.
I I love it, Chris, and I'm very fascinated by it, because I like being able to measure practice, Chris, and
Mm-hmm.
measuring success in practice. So what I like about it is the player can set that station up and go to 3 locations, and they can do the same one on the practice putting green every time, because you can make the same one. And all they've got to do is hit 15 putts, 5 from each one. And they can go to their phone in the notes section of their phone and just say, today I got 8. And
Mm-hmm.
then hopefully the next day, tomorrow it might be 9. So they're also measuring as well. They're not basing it. So that's what I'm, very big on. But yeah, I definitely love that one where you hit past the ball. It's got a lot of fun and entertainment to that one as well for the
Yeah.
player, which
And
I
you're and
like.
you're and you're always competing to beat your number, right?
Mm.
If you had stacked 8 in there, like I start the guys out in the golf school, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I have an assistant, Max Cooper. He's actually the kid playing in. I guess he's not a kid anymore. He's 21. I've
Yeah.
been with him since he was a little kid, but he's been
Yeah.
my assistant during the summer for the last 2 years. He's the one that travels with me during the summer, and he owns the record. He managed to fit 17 balls in that tiny square, back
Wow.
to back to back, which is insane. Good, he's not. He's a ball striker. Yeah, that's the best part of his game. But he was able to get that many. So I throw it out there at all my golf schoolers. It's like, hey, this summer Max is going to be back out with me, and he's got my current record. It's 17 out of all my players. He owns it. And I do not want to sit out here and have to explain to you guys what the current record holder is and have him standing right behind me over my shoulder, sitting here like, yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
one of you guys to beat this number before the summer. So, you start them down. All right, let's do this, and they
Yeah.
start going, and then they during the golf school, let's say they get, if you're a 110 shooter, you might get 5 in a row in that
Yeah.
circle. If you're a good player, you know we can try and get to the point where you're getting 10, 11. You have to be pretty elite to get up there in the 16, 17
Yeah.
range. You know what I mean? That's
Mm.
tour level putting. Um,
Mm.
but they're always out there trying to beat Max's number. So
That's
people
cool.
enjoy doing a drill that they can chase something
Yeah.
like that. It's not
That's
just
cool.
do this drill. There's competition to it.
Love it. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the Back to Basics putting segment. Chris, I love it. And it's been a pretty common theme, the speed control of late. People are talking about it a lot in the Back to Basics putting segment. Support those who support the podcast. TM15 get you 15% off. The best putting mirror there is. You can travel with it, like Chris said. It's rock solid. Comes with the putting gates as well. Lots of guys are buying it. I'm getting lots of emails that come through when you guys do it, so I appreciate you guys who are supporting them. And yeah, they look after us golf pros as well. They're a really, really great company. Cam Smith uses it every day, and he goes pretty good, right? All right, before we finish up, Chris, I've got a couple of questions for you. Just a couple of throwaway questions. You've been great with your time, mate, and I hope you get to have a great day. I'm going to go to bed, and you're going to go start your day. Throwaway questions. I think I know the answer to this one. What's your favorite takeaway food?
Oh, deep dish pizza.
Okay, great. You might have an answer to this one. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh,
It's a question without notice.
this is a quick answer.
Yes,
When I was playing hockey as a kid, get up and get back out there.
I like it.
Yep.
I like that on a lot of levels, actually. There's a lot more to
Mm-hmm.
that than what it actually sounds like.
Yep.
If you could be any athlete in the world, non-golf related, who would it be?
Alex Ovechkin.
Can you explain further who that is? I'm sorry, I don't know who that is.
NHL hockey. He's going to probably be the greatest goal scorer in the history of hockey.
That's so fascinating because I had Martin Chuck on a couple of days ago, and he said Wayne Gretzky. So
I'm sure he did. He's a big hockey guy too. Yeah, he
we've
is.
had two hockey guys in a row.
He's a little saucy because the NHL team at Phoenix just moved to Utah a couple of days ago, and he's a big fan of that team. So, it bit him hard.
So a whole team just packed up and left.
Yeah, it's America. If you don't have enough people going after 20 years, they just back up and move the franchise to another city.
Wow, that was going to happen here once in the NRL because we have too many teams in Sydney.
Yes, you do.
And I tell you what, mate, you would have to wear a bulletproof vest if you move some of those Sydney teams. If you're part of the NRL commission, because it was not going to happen. Too many upset people.
I love that game. I've seen games in Sydney, or matches. Sorry,
Yeah, that's right.
and I went to the opening day in Vegas this year. I went to
No
both of them.
way.
Yeah,
Did you?
yeah, I love it.
That's unreal. Yes, you went to the Vegas state, and did you watch? You watched both games?
I did. It was like it was packed for the first game, but all the fans of the individual teams surprisingly would leave, and before the second one, and it emptied out pretty good. And I realized by the end of it, I was sitting there talking to a few people that are still sitting next to me. By the end of it, it was just Americans trying to check out the sport, and they were asking
Wow.
me questions. I'm like, I don't know that. Like, calm down now. I'm. This is something I enjoyed watching, and I'm still learning. And they're asking me questions. I'm like, I can't answer that, but
Yeah.
that's my
Well,
new sport.
and NRL is my absolute love. Like, honestly, as sports away from golf, I listen to, I go for runs, I go to the gym, or whatever I listen to. I listen to NRL podcasts
Yeah.
more than anything. It's like, I think all us golfers, got a sport away, and NRL is it. And you went to the launch in Vegas that we did, which got for the next 5 years, which is
Hmm.
just big for us, to be honest with you, Chris. Like, we got Mr. Peter V'landys, the new the president or whatever you want to call him of the NRL, and he's doing an amazing job. He's turned into a profitable business. Like, he's really turned it around. So yeah, we're all very grateful for what he's doing, and taking it to Vegas was sick. It looks
You
sick.
can find bets on it, even matches that aren't in Vegas. You can bet it now pretty easily in Vegas,
Yeah,
and that's obviously
that's what he wants.
what they were looking for when they did it. And you can find it on TV in casinos. So
Can I ask you a question about gambling in America? And apparently something's happened where it's just kind of unloaded now, and maybe some potential law changes when people can gamble more now or something like that. And
yeah,
what's going on? Is gambling a big thing?
yeah,
You're in
it's
Vegas, right?
it's so the law change that was big is in the States you couldn't, outside of Nevada, the state was one. There was a federal law that you couldn't bet sports outside of um, a couple states. I forget the other two, but that had to do with the church wanted their bingo to be protected back in the day. I
Oh,
believe
okay.
that's what
Yeah.
and they made that law a long time ago, and then the Supreme Court threw that law out a few years back. So now it's up to the state whether they want to allow gambling or not in each individual state. So most states allow
Ah,
it because there's a lot of revenue, and online gambling through a casino is just popping up
ah,
everywhere in America. So that's why you see this explosion in sports betting.
oh, okay. Well, that's what I heard. That I just heard that. Yeah, something had happened, and well,
Mhm.
I guess that's good for the sport, but I just hope that it doesn't ruin too many people's lives, right? Because
Right.
gambling is a
Well,
killer.
the people whose lives are ruined by that were already dealing with their bookie
Yeah. Okay.
before that law, and now they're dealing with a casino who is the new bookie for them. So,
Okay. All right
yeah,
then. Okay. What's your favorite golf club in the bag?
my putter,
Wow, nice. What putt are you playing with?
Ping Zing, been having
Ping
it for
Zing.
a long time.
How old? How old is it roughly?
God,
So it's
22,
quite light.
23.
It's quite light, is it?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah,
Oh, nice,
I,
nice.
I I love it.
What's your favorite golf course?
Ooh, 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 London Club.
Interesting, interesting.
My
This week
favorite,
it's
my
Pete.
favorite golf course. Let me tell you, my favorite golf course is Augusta. My favorite
Yeah.
golf course I'm allowed to step foot on grounds with would be London Club. I've never been to
Have
Augusta.
you haven't been to Augusta yet?
I refuse to go until one of my players is playing in it.
That's what my friend Richard Woodhouse said.
Yep.
But
That's
he actually got to play there. He's teaches Justice, who a great Australian amateur player. She played in the women's event there, and
yeah,
the being a bit, I should know it, but anyways, yeah, and then she got to play after it with him and took him for his 40th birthday and had a round, so he had to say yes. But
yeah.
hey, this is actually going to be released after the PGA Championship, but you could be a miracle man here, and people will start following your betting. Who's going to win the PGA Championship this week?
I mean, if you got to go the safe one, Scotty.
You got
Scheffler's
it.
got it all day. There's no way at this point in time. I mean, odds are he's not going to win, right? Because he's just won everything. But that dude's winning everything. So I'll throw that one out there.
I've spoken about Scotty too much, and I'm going to say to listeners who give me a hard time about it because I'm just so fascinated by how good he is. But you brought it up, not me. Is this one of the most incredible runs that you've seen?
Yes.
Since Tiger.
Yes, and I don't care about the whole live PGA thing. If you talk about how Brooks and a few other guys are over on live, doing what you're doing on any tour, what he's doing is insane. I mean, this kid is a generational talent. And I'm still upset with him because we're over at UT this week, and I wasn't paying attention, and I almost tripped over his giant plaque on the side of the fairway talking about how great he is. So, I mean, I got beef with him now. I almost fell on my face in the middle of the golf course yesterday. So it was kind of cool to see it, right? And it's obviously a little bit older plaque, but it just says on the bottom of the plaque, I have a feeling we're going to have to keep updating this plaque a lot over the coming years. And my God, that's coming true like crazy.
Wow. Yeah, and I think it's fascinating. I know he's only won 2 majors, but the behavior and the way that he's playing, it's just incredible. Nothing like we haven't seen since Tiger. We've seen great playing. We've seen guys win every year. We've seen, some good little runs when they're winning, but you want to take a look at something and just it looks like, I don't know how to write it, but you go to look at the OWGR rating and look at his ranking, and you just see single digits the whole way down.
Yep.
And when I saw, when we look at the world's best players, we see, no disrespect, but we see Rory won last week, but it wouldn't be surprising if he misses the cut next week. You know what I mean?
Correct.
I even know he's second favorite. I shouldn't say that. It's disrespectful, but he misses cuts, and sometimes he's in there, sometimes he's not in there.
Sure.
And it just seems like Scotty, he's there.
Exactly. I mean, Rory's a normal elite level tour player. Scotty's doing something that's, I mean, I'm not going to say Tiger good because you got a long time of doing that before you could say that, but it's something special you're watching with Scotty Scheffler right now.
It's Tiger behavior. It's the way he's winning too. It's the way he's winning. It's fascinating. It's not just stumbling. It's just it's incredible.
You look up at him and just watch people crumble behind him. Tiger did that, and no one's done that since.
I would agree. Chris, you've been great for your time. I'll let you go do what you got to do, and I'm going to go hit the sack. And I'll put all the links below to get you for your schedule for your Australian tour, whatever you need. I'll put down below if you guys want to get in contact with Chris. Get him on his Instagram account. I'm sure he's got other socials as well. And jump on there. And Chris, thanks for coming on the Golf Coach Podcast, mate.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.